Imagine waking up in a world where a long-awaited medical breakthrough finally promises to slow one of the most feared and devastating diseases of our age, Alzheimer's disease. Now picture being told you cannot access that miracle, even as you watch a loved one slip away. For millions of families across the United Kingdom, this is not the plot of a dystopian novel. It is their everyday reality, a reality shaped by the collision of scientific advancement, economic constraints, and public health policy. The scale of the crisis is global. According to the World Health Organization, more than 55 million people worldwide are living with dementia, with nearly 10 million new cases emerging each year. The vast majority are caused by Alzheimer's. The direct and indirect costs, medical care, lost productivity, social support, are measured in hundreds of billions of dollars annually, making Alzheimer's one of the costliest diseases for societies to manage. And yet, for decades, the medical community has been largely powerless. Existing treatments, like cholinesterase inhibitors and memantine, can offer temporary relief from some symptoms, but do nothing to halt or reverse the inexorable progression of the disease. So, when researchers unveiled not one but two new drugs, Kisunla, also known as donanemab, developed by Eli Lilly, and Leqembi, or lecanemab, produced by Biogen and Eisai, the news was met with a wave of hope and cautious excitement. Unlike previous therapies, these drugs belong to a new class called monoclonal antibodies. Their unique promise, to target and reduce the accumulation of amyloid plaques in the brain, a hallmark feature of Alzheimer's disease, which researchers believe plays a crucial role in its progression. But as anyone following medical innovation knows, the journey from laboratory bench to bedside is not a straight path. Science is only one part of the equation. The other is the harsh arithmetic of public health budgets and the complex machinery of national healthcare systems. In the United Kingdom, the National Health Service, or NHS, is often lauded as a model of universal, publicly funded healthcare. But the NHS must make tough choices every day, balancing limited resources against competing needs, from cancer and cardiac care to mental health and chronic disease management. That is where NICE, the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, enters the story. Tasked with assessing not just the clinical effectiveness of new treatments but also their cost-effectiveness, NICE serves as the gatekeeper to what the NHS will and will not fund. When NICE reviewed the data on donanemab and lecanemab, optimism quickly gave way to tough scrutiny. The price tags were breathtaking. Donanemab was set to cost around $32,000 per patient per year, while lecanemab was only slightly less expensive at $26,500 annually. To put that into perspective, these prices are 5 to 6 times higher than the thresholds NICE ordinarily considers reasonable for new drugs. Dr. Helen Carter, a leading health policy expert based in London, captured the dilemma succinctly. The benefits we observed in the clinical trials, while scientifically significant, were too small for most patients to perceive in their everyday lives. But the costs would consume resources desperately needed elsewhere in the NHS. These are not simply numbers in a spreadsheet. Every pound spent on these drugs is a pound not spent on cancer screening, mental health services, or preventative care for heart disease. With the NHS already under strain from staff shortages, waiting lists, and rising demand, the prospect of funding high-cost drugs with limited benefit is a recipe for even deeper challenges. But the debate does not end with economics. There are medical and ethical complexities that make the story even more layered. The new drugs are not without risks. In clinical trials, more than 80% of participants developed antibodies against the very monoclonal antibodies meant to help them, a paradoxical twist that raises questions about the long-term effectiveness and safety of these treatments. There have also been reports of side effects ranging from mild symptoms to serious complications such as brain swelling or bleeding, particularly among patients with certain genetic profiles. Access is further complicated by the need for genetic screening, both the medicines and healthcare products. Regulatory agency in the United Kingdom and the Food and Drug Administration in the United States have approved these drugs only for patients with specific genetic markers, namely those who are ApoE4 heterozygotes or non-carriers. This means that before even considering treatment, patients must undergo genetic testing to determine eligibility, adding another layer of complexity and potential inequity. The outcome? In a landmark decision, NICE blocked both donanemab and lecanemab from routine use in the NHS. The United Kingdom became a global outlier, with American regulators having approved these treatments and other countries beginning to consider them for wider adoption. For British patients and their families, The result is a painful wait, caught between the hope of innovation and the hard arithmetic of cost-effectiveness. Is this the right call? The question has sparked heated debate. On one side are advocates, patient groups, and some clinicians who argue that denying access limits choice and hope, especially for those in the early stages of Alzheimer's, when even a small delay in cognitive decline can mean extra time with loved ones. On the other side, health officials and policy experts warn that paying sky-high prices for modest benefits risks crippling the NHS and could lead to rationing in other crucial areas, from cancer care to children's health services. This is not just theory. Imagine a scenario where the NHS spends hundreds of millions of pounds annually on Alzheimer's drugs, only to see little real-world improvement in patient quality of life. That money could have funded thousands of additional nurses, state-of-the-art diagnostic equipment, or expanded mental health programs. The opportunity cost is enormous, and the ripple effects could be felt for generations. Yet the decision by NICE is also a call to action for the global scientific and medical community. It is a signal that incremental benefits, however real, are not enough, especially when the cost is so high. Industry insiders and leading Alzheimer's researchers are already pivoting toward the next wave of innovation. The future may belong to therapies that do not just slow the disease slightly, but that truly halt or even reverse cognitive decline. Experts believe that combination therapies, drugs that simultaneously target amyloid plaques, tau tangles, and neuroinflammation, may offer the best hope for meaningful progress. The development of blood-based biomarkers, simple tests that could catch Alzheimer's years before symptoms appear, could revolutionize early diagnosis and enable much more personalized interventions. Imagine a future where a simple blood test at a routine checkup flags the earliest signs of neurodegeneration, allowing clinicians to intervene before irreversible damage is done. This is the frontier scientists are racing toward. But there are significant risks. If innovation slows, or if pharmaceutical companies cling to exorbitant pricing models, millions of families could be left waiting, trapped in limbo while health systems are forced to ration care. There is also the very real danger that public trust will erode if new drugs repeatedly fall short of expectations while draining precious resources. The history of Alzheimer's drug development is littered with failed trials and dashed hopes. The past 3 decades have seen dozens of promising compounds abandoned after disappointing results. On the policy front, some experts are advocating for bold reforms. Value-based pricing, where manufacturers are paid only if treatments deliver real-world benefits, could reshape the economics of Alzheimer's care. Major public-private partnerships and increased government subsidies for research might accelerate breakthroughs and ensure that new advances do not remain the preserve of the wealthy. There are even discussions about leveraging artificial intelligence and big data to identify novel drug targets and design more effective clinical trials. Second, it means advocating for fairness. In a world of finite resources, tough choices are inevitable, but those choices must be made transparently and ethically. Every dollar, pound, or euro spent here is one not spent elsewhere. The voices of patients and caregivers must be front and center in these debates, not marginalized or drowned out by industry lobbyists or bureaucratic inertia. For voters and policymakers, the lesson is equally stark. The challenge is to foster an environment where innovation thrives, but where the rewards are shared broadly and not captured by a narrow few. That may mean rethinking patent laws, incentivizing real breakthroughs rather than Me Too drugs, and investing in prevention and early intervention as much as in late-stage therapies. It also means strengthening support systems for caregivers, who provide the bulk of day-to-day care for people with Alzheimer's, often at great personal and financial sacrifice. Studies show that unpaid caregivers, usually family members, save health systems billions every year, yet they receive little recognition or support. Looking to history, we can draw parallels with the early days of HIV treatment. In the 1980s and 1990s, new antiretroviral drugs were initially priced beyond the reach of most patients, leading to global outcry and eventually massive price reductions and expanded access through international agreements and generic manufacturing. Could a similar transformation occur in Alzheimer's care? Only time will tell, but history offers both caution and hope. What about the future? Over the next 5 to 10 years, advances in combination therapies, early diagnostics, and creative policy solutions could change everything. The dream is a treatment that not only slows the disease, but restores lost function, allowing people like Margaret to reclaim years of meaningful life. But until then, the best approach is vigilance, advocacy, and informed optimism. Let us not forget a crucial, often overlooked fact. In the major clinical trials for donanemab and lecanemab, more than 80% of patients developed antibodies against the very drugs being tested. This sobering detail underlines just how complex human biology is and how rare true medical silver bullets remain. Progress is real, but it is rarely linear, and every step forward must be weighed against the realities of cost, risk, and benefit. So, what do we take away from this ongoing saga? Science is advancing, but hope must always be grounded in evidence, not hype. As global citizens, we each have a stake in how healthcare priorities are set, especially for diseases as widespread and devastating as Alzheimer's. The conversation is not just about drugs and budgets. It is about values, fairness, and what kind of society we want to build for future generations. If you found these insights valuable, subscribe for more deep dives into the future of medicine, economics, and technology. What do you think is the right balance? Should public health systems pay any price for hope, or is tough rationing the only way to safeguard the greater good? Share your thoughts and join the debate in the comments below. The future of Alzheimer's